The knock came at 11:47 p.m., three soft taps that would change everything. When Caleb Moore opened his apartment door that Saturday night, he found his best friend trembling in the hallway, eyes swollen from crying, clutching nothing but a backpack and the clothes on her back. What happened in the next 2 hours would set off a chain of events involving danger, courage, and a love story neither of them saw coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey travels. This is Maya's story, and it starts with 3 quiet knocks after bedtime. The spreadsheet on Caleb Moore's laptop screen had become a blur of numbers that no longer made sense. He rubbed his eyes, glanced at the clock in the corner of the screen, 11:34 p.m., and decided he'd done enough damage to his sleep schedule for one Saturday night. The quarterly financial projections for the nonprofit where he worked as operations director could wait until Monday morning, or at least until after he'd gotten more than 4 hours of sleep. He saved the file, closed his laptop, and stretched his arms above his head, feeling his spine crack in 3 places. 35 years old, and his body was already complaining like he was 50. That's what single parenthood did to you, he supposed. That, and living on microwave dinners and gas station coffee. The apartment around him was quiet in that particular way that only happens after you've successfully wrestled a 6-year-old into bed. Toys were stacked in neat bins against the wall, color-coded because if you didn't have systems in place, chaos would swallow you whole. His daughter Emma's drawings covered the refrigerator, held up by magnets shaped like zoo animals. The dishwasher hummed its final cycle. Everything was in its place. Caleb stood up from his desk, which was really just a folding table he'd picked up from IKEA 3 years ago and kept meaning to replace with something more substantial. He walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with tap water, and drank it standing at the sink while looking out the window at the Seattle skyline. Rain streaked the glass. Of course it was raining. This was Seattle. If it wasn't raining, something was probably wrong with the universe. The building he lived in wasn't fancy, a 12-story brick structure built in the 1980s, with narrow hallways that smelled faintly of cleaning products and somebody's perpetual curry cooking. But it was affordable, close to Emma's school, and had a doorman who actually gave a damn about security. That mattered when you were raising a kid on your own. Caleb had lived here for 4 years, ever since his ex-wife Sarah had decided that motherhood wasn't her calling and that a marketing executive position in San Francisco was more important than the family she'd started. The divorce had been quick, brutal, and left Caleb with full custody of Emma and a profound distrust of anyone who used the phrase "finding myself." He didn't blame Sarah anymore. Not really. Anger was exhausting, and he'd learned that holding on to it was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But he'd learned something else too, that he was capable of more than he'd ever given himself credit for, that he could be both mother and father to a little girl who still sometimes cried for the woman who'd left her. That love wasn't always romantic or passionate. Sometimes it was just showing up, day after day, even when you were tired enough to cry yourself. Caleb set the glass in the sink and was about to head to the bathroom to brush his teeth when he noticed it. The silence. Not just the silence in his own apartment, which was normal and expected, but the silence from next door. Apartment 7B, directly adjacent to his own, was home to Maya Collins and her boyfriend Ryan Hale. Caleb had known Maya since they were 15 years old, sitting in the back row of Mr. Peterson's biology class at Roosevelt High School, passing notes about how they were definitely going to fail the exam on cellular respiration. They'd been inseparable through high school, stayed close through college even though they'd gone to different schools, and had somehow ended up living next door to each other entirely by accident when Maya had moved to Seattle 2 years ago for a graphic design position. It had been one of those perfect coincidences that felt almost scripted. Caleb had been coming home from the grocery store, arms loaded with bags because he'd forgotten to bring reusable ones again, when he'd literally bumped into someone in the hallway. Apples had rolled everywhere. And when he'd looked up to apologize, there was Maya, laughing that same laugh he'd known for 20 years. They'd fallen back into friendship easily, the way old friends do. Coffee on Sunday mornings when Ryan was at the gym. Emma adored her Aunt Maya, who always brought interesting art supplies and didn't mind getting covered in paint. Maya had helped Caleb survive 2 bouts of stomach flu that had run through Emma's preschool. Caleb had helped Maya assemble furniture that came with instructions written in what appeared to be hieroglyphics. And normally, at 11:30 on a Saturday night, you could hear music from Maya's apartment. She and Ryan liked to throw impromptu dance parties, just the two of them, playing everything from Motown to modern pop. Caleb could usually hear the bass line through the wall, would sometimes catch himself smiling at Maya's off-key singing. But tonight, there was nothing, just silence. Caleb frowned, walked over to the wall that separated his apartment from Maya's, and stood there listening. Maybe they'd gone out. Maybe they'd gone to bed early. Maybe... That's when he heard it. Crying. Soft, muffled. The kind of crying someone does when they're trying desperately not to be heard. The kind that catches in your throat and makes your chest hurt. The kind that speaks of something broken. Caleb's hand went flat against the wall, as if he could somehow reach through the plaster and drywall and offer comfort. He knew that sound. He'd made that sound himself, late at night after the divorce, when Emma was asleep and the weight of everything crashed down on him. "Maya?" he whispered, even though she couldn't possibly hear him. Then came the sounds that made his blood run cold. A door slamming. Not just closing, slamming, with the kind of force that rattled picture frames. Heavy footsteps, aggressive, purposeful. A man's voice, raised and angry, though Caleb couldn't make out the words. Maya's voice, quieter, pleading. Another slam. Then footsteps in the hallway outside. Caleb moved to his door, looked through the peephole. He saw Ryan Hale stalking toward the elevator, jaw clenched, hands balled into fists. The man was 6'2", worked as a personal trainer, and right now looked like violence barely contained. Caleb had never particularly liked Ryan, though he'd tried for Maya's sake. There was something performative about the guy, something that felt off. The way he always had to be the center of attention, the way he called Maya babe, in that dismissive tone that suggested ownership rather than affection. The way he'd once made a joke about her weight that had made Caleb's teeth clench, even though Maya had laughed it off. But Maya loved him, or said she did, and it wasn't Caleb's place to judge. He'd made his own mistakes in love. Who was he to criticize anyone else's choices? The elevator dinged, the doors opened. Ryan stepped inside and the doors closed behind him. Silence again. Caleb stood at his door, hand on the deadbolt, debating. Should he check on Maya? Would she want him to? Maybe this was just a normal fight, the kind couples have. Maybe he was overreacting. Maybe... 3 knocks, soft, hesitant, on his door. Caleb's heart jumped into his throat. He looked through the peephole again. Maya stood in the hallway, and she was not okay. Her blonde hair, usually styled perfectly, hung limp and disheveled around her face. Her eyes were swollen and red. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, and she clutched a backpack to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She was shaking. Caleb could see it even through the distorted fisheye view of the peephole. She raised her hand to knock again, but Caleb was already unlocking the door, yanking it open. Maya, Caleb... Her voice broke on his name, splintered into pieces. Can I stay here tonight? She looked up at him with eyes that held something Caleb had never seen in her before. Not in 20 years of friendship, not through breakups or job losses or family drama. Fear, pure animal fear. Caleb didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He didn't stand there processing. He simply stepped aside, put his hand gently on her shoulder, and guided her into his apartment. Of course, he said, closing the door behind her and engaging both locks. Of course you can stay. Maya stood in the middle of his living room, still clutching that backpack, still shaking. She looked around as if seeing the space for the first time, even though she'd been here hundreds of times before. Her eyes landed on Emma's toy bins, her drawings on the fridge, and something in her expression crumpled. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know where else to go. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't... Her breath hitched. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come here. You have Emma. I can go somewhere else. Maya. Caleb kept his voice calm, steady, the same tone he used when Emma woke up from nightmares. You're safe here. You're not going anywhere. Sit down. He guided her to the couch, and she sank onto it like her legs had been the only thing keeping her upright. She set the backpack beside her but kept one hand on it, like she might need to grab it and run at any second. Caleb glanced down the short hallway toward Emma's bedroom. The door was closed, and he could see the nightlight glow underneath it. She was asleep. Good. Whatever this was, his daughter didn't need to see it. He moved to the kitchen, put the kettle on for tea, then changed his mind. Maya didn't need tea. She needed something that felt like comfort, like safety, like childhood. He made hot chocolate. Real hot chocolate, not the instant kind. He melted actual chocolate chips with milk in a small pot, added a touch of vanilla and sugar, stirred it carefully while keeping one eye on Maya through the kitchen pass-through. She hadn't moved. Just sat there, staring at nothing, one hand on the backpack, the other pressed against her mouth like she was physically holding back sobs. When the hot chocolate was ready, he poured it into 2 mugs. One of them was Emma's favorite, with a cartoon unicorn on it, grabbed a blanket from the basket next to the couch, and came back. Here. He handed her the unicorn mug, draped the blanket around her shoulders. Drink this. Maya took the mug with both hands, and Caleb noticed they were shaking so badly that the hot chocolate threatened to slosh over the rim. She brought it to her lips, took a small sip, and closed her eyes. It's good, she whispered. Emma's recipe. She insists on extra chocolate chips. A ghost of a smile flickered across Maya's face, then disappeared. She took another sip, and some of the shaking seemed to ease. The blanket helped too. Caleb sat down in the armchair across from her, giving her space, holding his own mug but not drinking from it. The silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 20 years of friendship, of knowing when to push and when to wait. Caleb was good at waiting. Single fatherhood had taught him patience. Maya pulled the blanket tighter around herself. Emma's asleep? Out cold. We had a tea party with her stuffed animals this afternoon, and apparently hosting is exhausting work. Another almost smile. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. More silence. Outside, rain continued to pattern against the windows. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance, then faded. The building's old heating system clanked and hummed. Maya set down her mug on the coffee table, and Caleb noticed for the first time that her hands had red marks on the wrists. Not bruises, exactly. More like where someone had grabbed her, hard. His jaw tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. Let her tell it in her own time. I don't know where to start, Maya finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Start anywhere. Or don't start at all if you're not ready. She shook her head. No, I need to say it. I need to say it out loud, because if I don't... She trailed off, took a shaky breath. When did it start? That's what people always ask, right? Like there's a specific moment where everything changed. Caleb said nothing, just listened. But there wasn't, Maya continued, staring at her hands. It wasn't like he hit me on the second date and I ignored it. It was so gradual, so subtle. Little things that seemed like caring at first. She picked at the edge of the blanket, pulling at a loose thread. He wanted to know where I was all the time. But that seemed sweet, like he was interested in my life. Then he wanted to see my text messages, but he said it was because he'd been cheated on before and had trust issues. I understood that. I wanted to be supportive. Her voice had gotten smaller, like she was ashamed. Then he started commenting on my clothes, said certain outfits were too revealing, that I was attracting the wrong kind of attention. He said it was because he loved me, because he didn't want other guys hitting on me. And I believed him. I changed how I dressed. Caleb felt anger rising in his chest like a tide, but he forced it down. This wasn't about him. This was about Maya. He didn't like my friends, said they were a bad influence, that they didn't understand our relationship, so I stopped seeing them as much. Then he started critiquing my work, saying my designs were amateur, that I could do better if I just listened to his suggestions. My confidence just eroded, bit by bit. She looked up at Caleb then, and her eyes were full of something that looked like shame. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I should have seen it, that I'm smart, that I'm strong, that I should have known better. But when you're in it, Caleb, when it's happening so slowly, you don't see it. You keep making excuses. You keep thinking if you just try harder, if you just love him better, it'll go back to how it was in the beginning. I'm not thinking that, Caleb said quietly. I'm thinking that you survived, that you're here now. Maya's eyes filled with fresh tears. She wiped them away angrily, like she was frustrated with herself for crying. Tonight, she took a shuddering breath. Tonight he'd been drinking. Not a lot, but enough. I made dinner, his favorite, this chicken marsala thing he loves, but I guess I didn't make it right. He said it was dry, said I couldn't even get a simple recipe right. I apologized, offered to order takeout, but he just kept picking at me. About the food, about how I'd loaded the dishwasher wrong, about how I'd spent too much money on art supplies this month. Her hands were shaking again. Caleb wanted to reach out, to take them in his, to offer some kind of physical comfort, but he stayed where he was. Let her tell it. I tried to change the subject, put on music, suggested we watch a movie. He said I was being dismissive of his feelings, that I never took his concerns seriously, and I snapped. For the first time in months, I pushed back. I told him I was tired of walking on eggshells, that nothing I did was ever good enough. Maya's voice had risen slightly, and she seemed to catch herself, glancing toward Emma's room. When she spoke again, it was quieter. He got this look on his face, this cold, hard look. He picked up his phone and threw it, not at me, but next to me. It hit the wall right beside my head, and I felt pieces of the case hit my face. It shattered, left a dent in the drywall. Caleb's hands clenched into fists. He forced them to relax. He stood there, breathing hard, and for a second, just a second, I thought he was going to apologize. But instead he said, "Look what you made me do." Like it was my fault, like I had thrown the phone. A tear slid down Maya's cheek. She didn't wipe it away this time. And I realized, this is how it happens. This is how people end up in situations they swore they'd never be in, because it's gradual, because you keep thinking it'll get better, because you've invested so much time and emotion that walking away feels like admitting failure. She looked directly at Caleb then, and her voice was stronger when she spoke. But when that phone hit the wall, something clicked in my brain, like a switch flipped. I thought about my mom, who always taught me that I was worth more than how any man treated me. I thought about Emma and what kind of example I'd be setting if she ever knew I stayed with someone who scared me. And I thought about you. Me? Yeah, you. Because you're a good man, Caleb, and I know what good men look like, because I've had one as my best friend for 20 years. They don't make you feel small. They don't control you. They don't throw things when they're angry. She pulled the blanket tighter. So when Ryan stormed out, said he was going to a bar to cool off, I grabbed my backpack. I took my laptop, my phone charger, my medications, some clothes, important documents. I didn't take time to think. I just moved, because I knew if I waited, if I talked myself out of it, I'd lose my nerve. "Does he know you're here?" Caleb asked. "I don't think so. He probably thinks I'm still in the apartment crying, waiting for him to come back so I can apologize." "You're not going to apologize." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Maya met his eyes and shook her head. "No, I'm not. I'm done." "Good." They sat in silence for a moment. Caleb's mind was racing, running through logistics. She'd need a safe place to stay beyond tonight. She'd need to get the rest of her things from the apartment. She'd probably need legal advice, maybe a restraining order if Ryan didn't take her leaving well. But those were problems for tomorrow. Tonight, she just needed to feel safe. "You said you just need one night," Caleb said. "But that's not true, is it? You need more than one night." Maya's face crumpled. "I don't want to impose. You have Emma, you have work, you have your own life." "Maya." He leaned forward, keeping his voice gentle but firm. "You can stay as long as you need. Days, weeks, whatever it takes. You're not an imposition. You're family." The word hung in the air between them. Family. Not by blood, but by choice. By 20 years of showing up for each other. By trust that had been built moment by moment, coffee by coffee, late-night conversation by late-night conversation. Fresh tears spilled down Maya's cheeks, but these looked different. Less like grief, more like relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, Caleb." He stood up, collected both their mugs, even though they were still half full. "You'll take my bed. I'll sleep on the couch." "No, I can't." "Yes, you can. The couch is actually pretty comfortable. Emma and I camp out on it sometimes when we have movie nights. You need real sleep, in a room with a door that locks." Maya looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion was written across every line of her face. She nodded. Caleb led her to his bedroom, which was small and utilitarian. A queen bed with a navy blue comforter, a dresser, a small nightstand with a lamp shaped like a lighthouse that Emma had picked out for him last Father's Day. He grabbed a clean t-shirt and sweatpants from his drawer. "Here, in case you want to change, bathroom's right there." He pointed to the adjoining door. "Fresh towels in the cabinet. Take whatever you need." Maya took the clothes, clutching them to her chest. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just rest." He started to leave, but Maya's voice stopped him. "Caleb?" He turned back. She was standing there in the middle of his bedroom, looking small and fragile and brave all at once. "If Ryan comes looking for me, he's not getting past this door. I promise you that." Something in his voice must have convinced her, because she nodded and some of the tension left her shoulders. Caleb closed the bedroom door behind him and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening. He heard the soft click of the bathroom door, the sound of running water. Good. She was safe. She was here. He walked back to the living room, grabbed his phone, and set an alarm for 6 a.m. Emma usually didn't wake up until 7 on Sundays, which would give him time to explain to her that Aunt Maya was here and needed somewhere to stay for a while. Emma would be thrilled. She loved Maya. Caleb pulled a spare blanket and pillow from the hall closet, made up the couch with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. He changed into pajama pants and a t-shirt, brushed his teeth, checked that all the locks on the front door were secure. Then he lay down on the couch and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of his apartment. The hum of the refrigerator, the rain against the windows, the old building settling around him. From his bedroom, he heard the bathroom door open, soft footsteps, the creak of the bed as Maya climbed in. A few minutes later, the light under the bedroom door went dark. Caleb closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. His mind kept replaying the image of Maya in his doorway, shaking and scared. Kept imagining Ryan's phone hitting the wall beside her head. Kept thinking about all the signs he'd probably missed over the past 2 years, all the times Maya had seemed a little quieter, a little less like herself, and he'd assumed it was just stress from work or normal relationship stuff. He should have known, should have seen it, should have said something, but self-recrimination wasn't useful. What was useful was making sure Maya felt safe, making sure she had the support she needed to rebuild her life, making sure Ryan understood that she wasn't alone in this. Caleb's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He picked it up, half expecting it to be Ryan, but it was a text from Maya. "Thank you for not asking questions, for just letting me in." He typed back, "Always. Get some sleep." A moment later, "You too." Caleb set the phone down and pulled the blanket up to his chin. Outside, the rain had intensified, drumming harder against the windows. Somewhere in the building, someone's TV murmured. A door opened and closed. He thought about tomorrow, about the conversations they'd need to have, about how to help Maya get her things from next door safely, about whether she'd want to press charges, about how to protect her not just physically, but emotionally, as she navigated what would probably be one of the hardest transitions of her life. But those were problems for daylight. Right now, in the quiet dark of his apartment, Maya was safe. She was sleeping in his bed, behind a locked door, in a place where no one would hurt her. And Caleb was here, awake and watchful, ready to make sure it stayed that way. The couch was uncomfortable. His back would hate him in the morning. He had a 6-year-old who would wake up with 1,000 questions and probably want pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. But none of that mattered. Because 20 years ago, a 15-year-old girl had passed him a note in biology class that said, "Want to be lab partners? I promise not to set anything on fire." And he'd written back, "Deal." They'd been partners ever since, through high school drama and college stress and first jobs and heartbreaks and marriages and divorces, through every twist and turn that life had thrown at them. And if Maya needed a safe harbor in the middle of a storm, well, that's what partners were for. Caleb finally felt sleep beginning to pull at him, dragging him down into darkness. His last coherent thought before he drifted off was simple. She's safe. That's what matters. She's safe. And in the morning, they'd figure out the rest. Together. Sunlight crept through the gaps in the curtains, falling across Caleb's face in thin golden lines. He opened his eyes slowly, disoriented for a moment by the unfamiliar angle of the ceiling. Right. The couch. He'd slept on the couch. His neck ached, a dull throb that radiated down into his shoulders. He sat up carefully, rolling his head from side to side, hearing vertebrae crack in protest. The apartment was quiet except for the familiar sounds of morning, traffic humming on the street below, someone's alarm beeping faintly through the walls, the building's pipes groaning as people started their showers. The clock on the cable box read 6:47 a.m. His alarm had gone off nearly an hour ago, but he'd barely registered it, dragging himself out of a dream he couldn't quite remember. Something about storms and locked doors. Then he remembered. Maya. Caleb stood up quickly, folding the blanket with automatic precision, stacking it with the pillow on the arm of the couch. He moved quietly toward his bedroom door, which was still closed. No sounds from inside. She was probably still asleep. Good. She needed it. He was halfway to the kitchen when he heard it, the soft pad of small feet on hardwood, the creak of a door opening. Daddy? Emma stood in her doorway, rubbing her eyes with one hand, clutching her stuffed elephant with the other. Her dark hair stuck up at odd angles, and she wore her favorite pajamas, the ones covered in astronauts and rockets that were getting too small, but that she refused to give up. Caleb's heart did what it always did when he saw his daughter first thing in the morning, swelled with a love so fierce it almost hurt. "Morning, Bug," he whispered, crouching down to her level. "Sleep okay?" She nodded, then squinted at the couch behind him, at the folded blanket and pillow. Her 6-year-old brain was already processing the inconsistency. "Why did you sleep out here?" Caleb had prepared for this question, had run through various explanations in the brief moments before sleep had claimed him last night. He believed in age-appropriate honesty with Emma. No lies, but no details that would scare her either. "Aunt Maya needed a place to stay last night," he said gently. "She's sleeping in my room. She had some trouble at her apartment and needed somewhere safe." Emma's eyes went wide. "Is she okay? Is she sick?" "She's not sick, Bug. Just going through a hard time. Sometimes grown-ups need help from their friends, just like you sometimes need help from yours." This made sense to Emma, who nodded solemnly. Like when Sophie's parents got divorced and she came over a lot? Sophie was Emma's best friend from school, whose parents had split up last year. Emma had asked 1,000 questions then, too, trying to understand the reshaping of her friend's world. "Kind of like that, yeah." "Can I see her?" "Not yet. Let's let her sleep." "But I bet she'd love to see you later. Maybe we can make her favorite breakfast when she wakes up. Do you remember what that is?" Emma scrunched up her face, thinking hard. Pancakes? No, wait. French toast with the cinnamon and the syrup. Exactly right. But first, how about we make some regular breakfast for you? Cereal? Toast? Cereal with the marshmallows? Nice try. Cheerios. Emma wrinkled her nose but didn't argue. She knew the rules about sugar cereal, weekends only, and only after real breakfast. Caleb stood up, took her hand, and led her to the kitchen, grateful for the normalcy of the routine. Pour the cereal, add the milk, cut up a banana, set it all on her special placemat. Emma climbed into her chair and started eating, swinging her legs under the table. Caleb made coffee, moving through the familiar motions while his mind churned through the day ahead. He needed to text his sister, see if she could take Emma for a few hours this afternoon. Maya would probably want to talk without little ears around. He needed to figure out the logistics of getting Maya's things from next door. He needed to. "Daddy, you're thinking too loud." Caleb looked down at his daughter, who was watching him with those dark, perceptive eyes that saw way too much for a 6-year-old. "Sorry, Bug, just planning the day." "Is Aunt Maya going to be okay?" The question was asked with such earnest concern that Caleb felt his throat tighten. He sat down at the table across from her. "Yeah," he said. "She's going to be okay. It might take some time, but she's strong, and she has people who care about her." "Like us?" "Like us." Emma nodded, satisfied, and went back to her cereal. Caleb sipped his coffee and watched her, thinking about the conversations he'd need to have as she got older, about how to recognize when someone treats you badly, about the difference between love and control, about how strength sometimes means asking for help. But those conversations were for later. For now, she just needed to know that Aunt Maya was safe. The bedroom door opened at 8:15. Caleb heard it from where he sat on the floor with Emma, helping her build an elaborate castle out of blocks. They both looked up as Maya appeared in the hallway, wearing Caleb's t-shirt and sweatpants, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, that comes from carrying too much for too long. But there was something different in her face, too, something that hadn't been there last night. Determination. "Aunt Maya!" Emma jumped up, scattering blocks in every direction, and ran to her. Maya caught her in a hug, closing her eyes as she held the little girl close. "Hey, Em, sorry, did I wake you guys up?" "We've been up forever," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Daddy made me eat Cheerios even though I wanted the marshmallow kind. Are you okay? Daddy said you had trouble at your apartment." Maya met Caleb's eyes over Emma's head. He gave her a slight nod. "It's okay. I kept it simple." "I'm okay," Maya said, releasing Emma but keeping one hand on her shoulder. "Just needed a change of scenery. Daddy said we could make you French toast, the kind with cinnamon." "That sounds perfect." They moved to the kitchen, Emma chattering about her week at school, about how her friend Tyler had brought a frog for show and tell, and it had escaped and the teacher had screamed. Maya listened, asking questions, and Caleb could see her relaxing incrementally with each passing minute. This was therapy, he thought. This normalcy. This mundane beauty of a Sunday morning with a 6-year-old who didn't know about abuse or fear or broken relationships, who just knew that someone she loved needed French toast. Caleb cooked while Maya and Emma set the table. He whisked eggs and milk and vanilla, dipped thick slices of bread, let them sizzle in butter on the griddle. The smell filled the apartment, cinnamon and sugar and comfort. Emma insisted on getting out the fancy plates, the ones with the floral pattern that Caleb's mother had given him and that he almost never used. They ate together at the small dining table, Emma between them, swinging her legs and talking nonstop. Maya managed to eat half of what was on her plate, which Caleb counted as a victory. He'd seen her during her last breakup in college. She'd lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks because she couldn't keep food down. After breakfast, Caleb caught Maya's eye and tilted his head toward Emma's room. Maya nodded, understanding. "Em, why don't you go play in your room for a bit? I need to talk to Aunt Maya about grown-up stuff." Emma looked between them, clearly curious, but she knew better than to argue when Caleb used that particular tone. "Can I watch a show instead? One episode of whatever you want." "Yes!" She scrambled off her chair and headed for the living room where the TV was already queued up to her favorite streaming service. Caleb and Maya moved to the kitchen where they could still see Emma but have some semblance of privacy. Maya leaned against the counter, arms crossed over her chest in a posture that looked defensive but that Caleb recognized as self-protective. "How did you sleep?" he asked quietly. "Better than I have in months, honestly. When was the last time you replaced that mattress? It's like sleeping on a cloud." 2 years ago. Emma kept sneaking into my bed and complaining that it was lumpy. A small smile flickered across Maya's face, then faded. "Caleb, I need to talk about what happens next. I can't hide out here forever." "You're not hiding. You're regrouping." Semantics. Important semantics. He poured himself more coffee, offered her a cup. She shook her head. "Have you thought about what you want to do?" Maya was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. "I need to get my stuff. My real stuff. My computer, my portfolio, my clothes. The things that matter for work. But I can't go back there alone." "You won't. I'll go with you. Ryan might be there. I'm counting on it." Something in his voice made Maya look up sharply. "Caleb, I don't want this to turn into some macho confrontation thing. That's not what I need." "I know. What you need is to get your belongings safely and without being harassed or intimidated. And I need to make sure that happens. That's not macho. That's practical." Maya bit her lip, considering. "What about Emma?" "I'll call my sister. She's been wanting to take Em to that new indoor playground anyway. We'll do it this afternoon when Ryan's most likely to be at the gym." 3 o'clock on a Sunday, that's his usual time, right? Maya looked surprised that he knew Ryan's schedule, but she nodded. "Yeah. He's religious about it. Never misses a Sunday chess day." "Then that's when we go. We'll be quick, efficient, in and out in 30 minutes. He has a key to your apartment." The statement hung in the air between them. Caleb hadn't thought of that. Maya had Ryan's key to her place, which meant Ryan had Maya's keys, which meant, change your locks, Maya said, reading his mind. Or at least get the chain put on if you don't have one. I don't think he'd actually come here, but we don't take chances. Caleb pulled out his phone, made a note. I'll call a locksmith tomorrow. For today, we'll make sure you're not alone. I hate this, Maya said suddenly, her voice cracking. I hate that I'm afraid of someone I used to love. I hate that I have to plan and strategize just to get my own things from my own apartment. I hate that I've dragged you into this mess. Caleb set down his coffee and moved to stand in front of her, close but not touching. Maya, look at me. She did, reluctantly. You didn't drag me into anything. You came to a friend for help. That's not weakness, that's courage. And everything you're feeling right now, the fear, the anger, the frustration, all of that is valid. You get to feel all of it. Tears welled up in her eyes. I should have left sooner. I should have seen the signs. Everyone's going to think I'm stupid. No one who matters is going to think that. And anyone who does doesn't understand how these things work. He kept his voice steady, firm. You survived. You got out. That's what matters. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away impatiently. When did you get so wise? Around the same time my wife left me with a 3-year-old and I had to figure out how to braid hair while Googling how to talk to kids about divorce. That got a real laugh. Wet, but genuine. Maya shook her head. We're a pair, aren't we? The divorce club. The resilience club, Caleb corrected. Sounds better. From the living room, Emma's show played cheerful music. Through the kitchen window, Seattle spread out under cloudy skies, the Space Needle visible in the distance. Normal life continuing normally, while inside this apartment, everything was shifting. I should call my mom, Maya said after a moment. She's going to lose her mind when she finds out. Supportive kind of losing her mind or judgmental kind? Supportive, definitely supportive. She never liked Ryan, said he reminded her of my dad before the divorce. Maya's expression turned thoughtful. I should have listened to her. Hindsight's 20/20. What matters is what you do now. Maya nodded slowly. I think I need to leave Seattle for a while. Just temporarily. My cousin Rachel lives in Portland. She's been asking me to visit for months. Maybe I could stay with her while I figure things out, get some distance, clear my head. Caleb felt something twist in his chest, disappointment maybe, or worry. But he pushed it down. This wasn't about him. If that's what you need, then you should do it. You think I'm running away. I think you're making a strategic decision to prioritize your safety and mental health. That's not running. That's smart. Maya looked at him for a long moment, and something shifted in her expression. Something soft and complicated. How are you single, Caleb Moore? Seriously. How has someone not snatched you up? He laughed, caught off guard. Have you met me? I'm a 35-year-old single dad who eats dinner at 5:30 and falls asleep watching cartoons. I'm a real catch. You're kind. You're patient. You actually listen when people talk. You make really good French toast. She smiled, but there was something sad in it. Ryan never listened, not really. He'd ask me about my day and then interrupt 30 seconds in to talk about his workout or some client at the gym. But you actually hear people. Caleb didn't know what to say to that, so he just shrugged. Maybe I'm just selfish. I like stories, and people are the best stories there are. Before Maya could respond, Emma called from the living room. Daddy, my show's over. Can I play with Aunt Maya now? Sure, Bug, Caleb called back. Then, quieter, to Maya. You up for it, or do you need more time? No, I'm good. Playing with Emma sounds perfect, actually. They spent the rest of the morning in the living room. Emma showed Maya her latest drawings, elaborate scenes of princesses and dragons and what appeared to be a spaceship. Maya praised them with the practiced eye of a graphic designer, pointing out Emma's use of color and composition. Emma glowed under the attention. At noon, Caleb ordered pizza. At 1, his sister Kate showed up, breezing in with the kind of energy that made small rooms feel smaller. So this is the famous emergency, Kate said, giving Maya a quick hug. Good to see you, Maya. Sorry it's under these circumstances. Thanks for taking Emma on short notice. Are you kidding? Indoor playground and ice cream? I'm the hero here. Kate turned to Caleb. You got 2 hours. That enough? Should be. Kate gathered Emma, who was torn between excitement about the playground and worry about leaving Aunt Maya. Maya crouched down to her level. You go have fun, okay? I'll be here when you get back. Promise? I promise. That seemed to satisfy her. Emma hugged both of them and followed Kate out the door, already chattering about which slide she was going to try first. When the door closed behind them, the apartment felt suddenly very quiet, very serious. Ready? Caleb asked. Maya took a deep breath. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked the short distance to Maya's apartment, just next door, but it felt like miles. Maya's hand shook as she pulled out her keys. She'd texted Ryan earlier, a carefully crafted message that said she was coming by at 3 to get some clothes. He'd responded with a single word, fine. The door opened into an apartment that looked nothing like Caleb's. Where his was functional and kid-friendly, Maya's was artistic and curated. Original paintings on the walls, throw pillows in jewel tones, a bookshelf organized by color. But there was something off about it now, like looking at a photograph that had been slightly overexposed. The dent in the wall near the kitchen was small but visible. Caleb saw Maya's eyes go to it immediately, saw her flinch. Let's make this quick, he said. What do you need? My laptop and backup drive from the desk, clothes from the bedroom, my portfolio case. It's in the closet. And there's a lockbox in the nightstand with important documents. They worked quickly and quietly, Caleb following Maya's lead. She moved through the apartment like a stranger, touching things briefly before packing them away. No nostalgia, no lingering, just efficiency. The bedroom was the hardest. Caleb could see it in the way Maya's shoulders tensed when she opened the closet, and how her movements became more jerky and rushed. She grabbed armfuls of clothes without looking at them, stuffed them into a duffel bag. She pulled the lockbox from the nightstand drawer, checked its contents quickly, passport, birth certificate, social security card, and tucked it under her arm. The portfolio case, she said. It's on the top shelf. I can't reach it. Caleb moved to the closet, reached up, and pulled down a large black case. As he did, something else fell. A small box, the kind jewelry comes in. It hit the floor and popped open, revealing a ring. Not just any ring, an engagement ring. Diamond solitaire, simple and elegant. Both of them stared at it. Oh, Maya said softly. I didn't know he'd bought one. Caleb felt something cold settle in his stomach. He was going to propose. Looks like it. Maya's voice was flat, emotionless. She picked up the box, closed it with a snap, and set it on the dresser. Good thing I left when I did. She turned back to her packing, but Caleb could see the tension in her jaw, the way her hands trembled slightly as she zipped the duffel bag. He wanted to say something, but what was there to say? That she'd dodged a bullet? She knew that. That Ryan didn't deserve her? She knew that too. Sometimes there were no words that helped. Sometimes you just had to be present. They were loading the last box into Caleb's apartment when they heard it, the elevator ding. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. Ryan was home early. Maya froze, her eyes going wide. Caleb stepped in front of her instinctively, positioning himself between her and the hallway. Ryan rounded the corner and stopped dead when he saw them. He was exactly as Caleb remembered from last night, 6'2", athletic build, the kind of guy who wore tank tops even in winter to show off his arms. But now, in the fluorescent hallway lighting, Caleb could see the tight set of his jaw, the cold calculation in his eyes. Maya. Ryan's voice was controlled, too controlled. I got your text. We're just getting her things, Caleb said calmly. We'll be out of your way in a minute. Ryan's eyes flicked to him, dismissive. I wasn't talking to you. And I'm not talking for her, but we're leaving, so… Maya, can we talk? Alone? Maya's voice, when it came, was steadier than Caleb expected. No, Ryan. We can't. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. We can work this out. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We always fix things. There's nothing to fix. I'm done. Ryan took a step forward. Caleb matched it, keeping himself between them. Ryan noticed, and something flickered across his face. Anger, barely restrained. This is your doing, Ryan said, looking at Caleb now. You've been waiting for this, haven't you? Playing the nice guy, the supportive friend, just waiting for your chance. Ryan, Maya's voice cut through his accusations. Caleb has nothing to do with this. This is about you and me, about how you treated me, about choices you made. I made mistakes, I'll admit that, but you didn't have to run. You could have talked to me. I tried talking to you. You threw your phone at the wall next to my head. The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. Ryan's face flushed. I didn't throw it at you. I would never. You threw it close enough. And you blamed me for it. Told me I made you do it. Caleb watched the exchange, every muscle in his body tense and ready. He'd never been in a fight as an adult. The closest he'd come was breaking up a shoving match at Emma's soccer game last season. But he would fight now if he had to. He would put himself between this man and Maya for as long as it took. Ryan's jaw worked like he was grinding his teeth. So what? You're just giving up? On us? On everything we built? You didn't build anything, Ryan. You controlled and criticized and made me feel small. That's not a relationship. That's... Maya paused, searching for the word. That's a prison. The word hit like a slap. Ryan recoiled, genuine hurt flashing across his face before anger replaced it. Fine, he said, his voice turning cold. Fine. Run to your white knight here. See how long that lasts. You think he's any different? He's divorced, Maya. Single dad. Probably using you for babysitting. That's enough, Caleb said quietly. There was steel in his voice now, the kind that came from protecting what mattered. You need to leave. This is my building, too. Then go to your apartment. Maya has every right to collect her belongings. We're almost done. Give us 10 minutes, and we'll be gone. Ryan looked like he wanted to argue. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, and for a moment Caleb thought it might actually come to blows. But then Ryan seemed to deflate slightly. Whatever, he muttered. Keep the stuff. I don't care. It's all cheap anyway. He brushed past them, shoulder-checking Caleb hard enough to make him stumble. The door to Maya's apartment opened and slammed shut with enough force to rattle the walls. Maya let out a breath she'd been holding. Her whole body was shaking now, adrenaline working its way through her system. Caleb put a gentle hand on her shoulder. You okay? She nodded, but tears were streaming down her face. Not sad tears, angry ones. I can't believe I loved him. I can't believe I let him talk to me like that for 2 years. Hey. Caleb turned her to face him. You got out. That's what matters. You stood up to him. You didn't back down. I wanted to, she admitted. When he asked to talk, part of me wanted to say yes. To explain. To make him understand. Isn't that crazy? It's not crazy. It's human. But you didn't do it. You held your ground. Maya wiped her eyes, smudging mascara she'd put on that morning in an attempt to feel normal. Can we please just finish and get out of here? They loaded the last of her things into Caleb's apartment, working quickly and silently. When the final box was stacked in his living room, Maya closed the door and leaned against it, eyes closed. I need to call my cousin, she said. See if I can stay with her for a while. When would you leave? Tomorrow, if she says yes. Is that okay? I know Emma wants to spend time with me. Maya, you do what you need to do. Emma will understand, and she'll see you when you come back. If I come back. The words were quiet, almost too quiet to hear, but Caleb heard them. He felt them settle somewhere in his chest, heavy and complicated. If, he echoed. Okay. Maya made the call while Caleb unpacked her things, trying to organize them in some sensible way in his small apartment. He could hear her talking to her cousin Rachel, explaining the situation in carefully modulated tones. Yes, she was safe. No, she wasn't hurt. Yes, she could be there by tomorrow evening if she caught an afternoon bus. When she hung up, she looked both relieved and exhausted. She said yes. She's excited, actually. Said it'll be like the sleepover camp we did when we were 12, except with better wine. Caleb smiled. That sounds good. Portland's not far. You can visit. Or we can visit you. I'd like that. They stood there in the middle of his cluttered living room, surrounded by boxes that held pieces of Maya's life, and neither of them seemed to know what to say. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, making everything look golden and slightly unreal. "Thank you," Maya finally said. "For today, for last night, for all of it." "You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do. Not everyone would have opened their door. Not everyone would have gone with me to face him. You could have just, I don't know, offered sympathy and kept your distance." Caleb shook his head. "That was never an option. Your family, Maya, that means something." The word again, family, it seemed to carry weight beyond its definition, to encompass 20 years of history and trust and showing up for each other when it mattered. The front door opened and Emma burst in, all energy and excitement, Kate following behind with a bemused expression. "We went on the biggest slide ever," Emma announced, "and I got rainbow ice cream, and Aunt Kate let me go on the trampoline even though there was a sign that said, 'You have to be 7. "Shh," Kate said, putting a finger to her lips. "That part's a secret." Emma giggled, then ran to Maya. "Did you get all your stuff? Are you moving in with us?" Maya crouched down to Emma's level, brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face. "I'm going to visit my cousin in Portland for a while, sweetie, but I'll come back to see you, I promise." Emma's face fell. "When?" "I don't know yet, but soon, and we can video chat, okay? You can show me all your new drawings." "Okay." Emma hugged her tightly. "I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too, Em, so much." Caleb watched them, feeling that familiar tightness in his throat. Kate caught his eye and raised an eyebrow. "We'll talk later," her look said. He nodded. That evening, after Emma was asleep and Kate had gone home, Caleb and Maya sat on opposite ends of the couch with mugs of tea, not talking, just being. The TV played something neither of them was watching. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the dark sky. "I'm scared," Maya said suddenly. "Not of Ryan, of starting over, of being alone." "You're not alone." "You know what I mean, romantically, dating again, trusting again." She set down her mug. "What if I never do? What if this broke something in me that can't be fixed?" Caleb thought about his own divorce, about the year afterward when he'd been convinced he'd never trust anyone again, about how that had gradually changed, softened, become less a certainty and more a fear he could live with. "It didn't break you," he said. "It changed you. But change isn't the same as broken. You're going to heal, Maya, and when you're ready, if you're ready, you'll try again, but on your terms this time, with your eyes open." She looked at him, and in the dim light of the lamp, he couldn't quite read her expression. "What about you? Are your eyes open?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, when was the last time you went on a date? When was the last time you let someone in?" Caleb laughed, uncomfortable. "I'm a single dad. My idea of a wild Friday night is staying up past 10 to watch a documentary about penguins. That's not an answer." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Maya. After Sarah, I guess I decided it was easier to focus on Emma, to not complicate things." "Safer, you mean?" "Yeah, safer." They sat with that truth hanging between them. Two people who'd been hurt, who'd built walls, who'd chosen the predictable over the possible. "We're a mess," Maya said, but she was smiling. The best people usually are. She laughed, and it was real and warm, and Caleb felt something in his chest loosen. She was going to be okay. It would take time. It would take work, but she was going to be okay. And maybe, eventually, so was he. The bus pulled away from the curb at 2:15 p.m. the next day, and Caleb stood on the sidewalk watching until it disappeared into Seattle traffic. Maya had waved from her window seat, her face a mixture of relief and uncertainty, and then she was gone. The walk back to his apartment felt longer than it should have. Caleb's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Kate asking how the send-off went. He typed back a quick response. "She's on her way." Then another from Maya herself, sent just minutes after the bus departed. "Thank you for everything. I mean it." He didn't know what to say to that, so he sent back a simple, "Be safe. Text when you get there." Emma was at school, wouldn't be home for another 2 hours. The apartment waited for him, too quiet now, Maya's absence somehow louder than her presence had been. The boxes they'd brought from her place still sat stacked against the wall. She'd taken only what she could carry on the bus, said she'd figure out the rest later. Caleb made himself coffee he didn't want and sat at his laptop, trying to focus on the quarterly projections that were due by end of week. The numbers swam on the screen, meaningless. He kept thinking about the way Maya had looked when she hugged him goodbye that morning, how she'd held on just a fraction longer than normal, how she'd whispered, "I don't know what I would have done without you," against his shoulder. He kept thinking about things he hadn't said, things that seemed too complicated to voice. 3 weeks passed like water through fingers. Maya texted regularly at first, photos of Portland's food trucks, updates on job interviews at design firms, selfies with her cousin Rachel at Powell's books. The text came with reassurances that she was doing better, sleeping better, feeling more like herself. Caleb responded to each one, kept the conversation light and supportive. Emma demanded video calls every few days, would spend 30 minutes showing Maya her latest school projects, while Maya praised every crayon stroke and glitter application. But something was shifting, some subtle change in the frequency of messages, the tone of their exchanges. Maya's texts became less frequent, more focused on surface-level updates. The video calls grew shorter, and Caleb told himself this was good, this was healthy. She was building a new life, finding her footing, moving forward. He told himself he wasn't disappointed. He told himself a lot of things. Work consumed him in the way it always did when he needed distraction. The nonprofit where he served as operations director was launching a new initiative to provide job training for homeless youth, and Caleb threw himself into budget planning and logistics with single-minded focus. He stayed late at the office, brought work home, filled every spare moment with productivity. Emma noticed, of course. Kids always noticed. "You're tired all the time now, Daddy," she said one night as he tucked her in, 2 weeks after Maya had left. "Like how you were when Mommy left." The observation hit him square in the chest. "I'm just busy with work, Bug. Big project coming up. Is Aunt Maya coming back soon?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Do you miss her?" Caleb smoothed the blanket over his daughter, buying himself time to find the right words. "Yeah, Em, I do, but I'm glad she's somewhere that makes her happy." Emma considered this with the gravity of someone much older than 6. Sophie's dad says that sometimes people need space to fix what's broken inside them. Is that what Aunt Maya's doing? Something like that. Where did you hear that? Sophie told me. After her parents got divorced, she said her dad needed space to fix his broken heart. Caleb felt his throat tighten. Sometimes his daughter's wisdom caught him completely off guard. That's very smart. Sophie's dad is right. Is your heart broken? The question was asked with such innocent directness that Caleb didn't know how to answer it. Was it? He'd thought his heart had broken when Sarah left, had been certain he'd used up his lifetime allotment of heartbreak. But this feeling, this hollowness that had settled in his chest since Maya left, it felt different. Less sharp, maybe, but somehow deeper. "I'm okay, Bug," he said finally. "I promise." Emma studied his face for a long moment, then seemed to accept his answer. "Okay. Love you, Daddy." "Love you too. Sleep tight." He closed her door and leaned against the hallway wall, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Through the wall, he could hear sounds from Maya's old apartment, or rather, Ryan's apartment now. New sounds. Music he didn't recognize. A woman's laugh, high and bright. Ryan had wasted no time moving on, apparently. Caleb had seen her once, leaving the apartment in the morning, tall, athletic, blonde. Everything Maya wasn't, or maybe everything Ryan thought Maya should have been. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. Except it did, somehow. Caleb pushed off the wall and went to clean the kitchen, to restore order to the physical space since his internal landscape felt increasingly chaotic. He was loading the dishwasher when his phone rang. Not a text. An actual call. Maya's name lit up the screen. He answered immediately. "Hey, everything okay?" "Yeah, sorry, I know it's late there." Her voice sounded different somehow. Steadier, maybe. I wanted to hear your voice. Is that weird?" "Not weird. How are you?" "Good. Really good, actually. Rachel and I went hiking today at Silver Falls. It's beautiful here, Caleb. You and Emma should visit. She'd love it." "We'd like that." He sat down at the kitchen table, phone pressed to his ear. "How's the job hunt going?" "I actually have news about that. I got an offer. Senior designer position at a boutique agency downtown. They do really cool work. Local businesses, startups, some nonprofit clients. It's exactly the kind of thing I've been wanting to do. Caleb felt genuine happiness for her, mixed with something else he didn't want to examine too closely. Maya, that's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks. I start in 2 weeks. A pause. Which means I'll be staying here, in Portland. For real. There it was, the thing he'd known was coming but hadn't let himself think about. Maya wasn't coming back to Seattle. She was building a life somewhere else, somewhere better, somewhere that didn't hold painful memories. That's really great, he managed. I'm happy for you. Are you? You sound weird. Just tired. Long day. He rubbed his eyes. Seriously, Maya, this is good news. You deserve it. She was quiet for a moment. I miss you guys. I miss Emma's random questions and your terrible dad jokes and Sunday morning pancakes. We miss you too. But I can't come back, Caleb. Not to Seattle. Not to that apartment building with Ryan next door. Every time I think about it, I feel like I can't breathe. I know, I get it. You have to do what's right for you. I wish. She trailed off, didn't finish the thought. What? Nothing. Doesn't matter. Her voice brightened artificially. How's Emma? She sent me 17 pictures of her Halloween costume ideas. I think she's going for world's most elaborate princess astronaut dragon hybrid. They talked for another 20 minutes, falling into easier conversation about Emma's latest school drama, about Rachel's terrible cooking, about the podcast Caleb had started listening to during his commute. By the time they hung up, things felt almost normal again. Almost. That night, Caleb lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the things people don't say, about the space between I miss you and come back, about how you could be happy for someone and sad for yourself at the same time. He thought about Maya's question, is your heart broken? Maybe. Maybe it was. November arrived cold and wet, typical Seattle weather that matched Caleb's mood. He focused on work, on Emma, on the daily mechanics of life. Thanksgiving came and went, dinner at Kate's house, Emma eating her weight in mashed potatoes, Caleb deflecting questions about whether he was dating anyone. Maya called on Thanksgiving, FaceTimed with Emma for an hour, while the girls showed her the turkey she'd helped make out of construction paper. After Emma ran off to play with her cousins, Maya lingered on the call. You doing okay? She asked. You look tired. Everyone keeps telling me that. Maybe I should sleep more. Maybe you should talk about what's actually bothering you. Caleb glanced around to make sure Emma was out of earshot. I'm fine, Maya. Just adjusting to you not being next door, I guess. Stupid, right? You were only here for 2 days. Not stupid. Her voice was soft. I miss having you next door, too. Miss knowing I could just knock if I needed someone. You can still call, anytime. It's not the same. No, Caleb admitted. It's not. They looked at each other through their screens, two people separated by geography and circumstance and things that felt too fragile to name. December brought rain that turned to ice, holiday decorating, and Emma's school winter concert where she sang Jingle Bells with more enthusiasm than accuracy. It also brought an unexpected email in Caleb's work inbox, subject line, Seattle Conference, Design and Nonprofit Collaboration. He almost deleted it as spam, but something made him open it. A 3-day conference in Seattle, mid-January, bringing together designers and nonprofit leaders to discuss effective collaboration. Guest speakers from across the Pacific Northwest. Networking opportunities. Professional development credits. One of the listed speakers was from Maya's new agency in Portland. Caleb stared at the email for a long time. Maya hadn't mentioned anything about a work conference in Seattle. Maybe she didn't know about it. Maybe her agency was sending someone else. Maybe it didn't matter. He forwarded it to her anyway with a simple message. Saw this and thought of you. Your agency is listed as one of the presenters. Her response came 3 hours later. Thanks for sending. I actually just found out today that I'm the one presenting. Was going to tell you. Caleb typed and deleted several responses before settling on, That's great. When do you get here? Conference is January 15th to 17th. I'll fly in the night before. The reply came quickly. We should get dinner if you want to. Caleb looked at those 5 words, if you want to, and felt something shift in his chest. The careful casualness of them, the built-in escape route, the fear of asking for too much. He typed back, "I'd love to. Emma will be excited to see you." A pause, then, "What about you? Will you be excited?" He stared at the question, at the vulnerability underneath it. Maya was asking something bigger than whether he wanted to have dinner. She was asking if he'd missed her, if the past 3 months had felt as strange to him as they clearly had to her, if this distance between them was something worth trying to close. "Yeah," he typed. "I will be." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. "Good. Me too." The weeks between that conversation and Maya's arrival felt interminable and too fast all at once. Caleb found himself thinking about it constantly, what they'd talk about, whether things would feel different, if 3 months was enough time for Maya to heal or too much time for their friendship to stay the same. Emma counted down the days on her calendar, marking each one with a glitter pen. "Only 12 more days until Aunt Maya comes," she'd announce at breakfast. Then 11 days. Then 10. Caleb cleaned his apartment with more care than necessary, changed his sheets, made sure the coffee maker was working properly. He told himself this was just normal hospitality, that he'd do the same for any friend visiting from out of town. He told himself a lot of things that felt increasingly like lies. On January 14th, Maya texted, "Just landed, headed to hotel. Dinner tomorrow?" Tomorrow was the opening day of the conference. Caleb had the day off, had requested it specifically, though he'd told his boss it was for a doctor's appointment. Emma would be at school until 3, giving them time alone. He texted back, "Come for lunch instead? I'll cook." The response was almost instant. "Perfect. Noon?" Noon. That night, Caleb barely slept. He lay in bed running through conversation topics, trying to plan for something that couldn't be planned. At 2 a.m., he gave up and went to the kitchen, made tea, sat at the table in the dark. His phone buzzed. Maya. "Can't sleep either." Caleb smiled despite himself. "Nervous?" "About the presentation," she wrote. "Among other things." "You'll kill it. You always do." 3 dots. Then, "I'm nervous about seeing you. Is that weird?" Caleb's heart kicked against his ribs. He typed carefully. "Not weird. I'm nervous too." "Why?" "Because I don't know what the last 3 months changed. Because I miss you more than I expected to. Because I'm afraid things won't feel the same." He deleted that and wrote instead, "Because it's been a while. Because you're important to me." Her response took longer this time. "You're important to me too. That's why I'm nervous." They texted back and forth for another hour, the conversation drifting from nerves to easier topics. Emma's latest obsession with marine biology, Rachel's disastrous attempt at making sourdough, a movie they'd both watched and had different opinions about. Eventually, around 3:30, Maya sent, "I should try to sleep. Big day tomorrow." "Yeah. See you at noon?" "Can't wait." Caleb set down his phone and leaned back in his chair, looking out at the Seattle skyline. Somewhere in a hotel room a few miles away, Maya was probably doing the same thing, looking out at the same city, thinking the same thoughts. Tomorrow. He'd see her tomorrow. He finally fell asleep around 4, dreamed of knocking on doors that wouldn't open, and woke to his alarm feeling both exhausted and electric with anticipation. The morning passed in a blur of getting Emma ready for school, making sure she had her lunch and homework and library books. At drop-off, she hugged him extra tight. "Tell Aunt Maya I love her," Emma said, "and that I made her a picture. It's on my desk." "I will, Bug." "Are you going to tell her you love her too?" Caleb blinked. "What?" "Aunt Kate says you've been mopey since Aunt Maya left because you love her, but you won't say it. Are you going to tell her today?" Heat crept up Caleb's neck. "Aunt Kate talks too much. And it's more complicated than that." Emma shrugged, the gesture remarkably similar to one Kate herself would make. "Doesn't seem complicated to me. You love her. She makes you happy. That's pretty simple." "Out of the mouths of babes," her teacher said, walking past with an amused expression. Emma kissed his cheek and ran to join her friends. Caleb stood there for a moment, watching her go, thinking about how 6-year-olds sometimes saw things more clearly than adults ever could. Back at the apartment, he cleaned again, even though everything was already clean, Made a simple lunch, sandwiches, soup, nothing too elaborate. Put on coffee. Changed his shirt twice before settling on the blue one Emma said made his eyes look nice. At 11:47, his doorbell rang. Caleb's heart jumped into his throat. He crossed the apartment, hand on the doorknob, took a breath, opened it. Maya stood in the hallway, and for a moment neither of them moved. She looked different, haircut shorter, new glasses, wearing a professional blazer he'd never seen. But her smile was the same, tentative and warm, and her eyes held the same mix of hope and uncertainty he felt. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They stood there like strangers, like people who didn't know how to navigate the space between friendship and something more, between 3 months apart and whatever came next. Then Maya laughed, slightly nervous. "Is this weird? This feels weird. Can we hug? Is that weird?" Caleb stepped forward and pulled her into his arms, and the moment he did, everything that had felt strange clicked back into place. She fit against him the same way she always had, her head tucking perfectly under his chin, her arms wrapping around his waist. She smelled like the same lavender shampoo she'd always used, and when she pulled back to look up at him, her eyes were bright. "I missed you," she said. "So much." "I missed you too." They moved into the apartment, and Maya looked around like she was seeing it for the first time, even though she'd been here hundreds of times before. "It looks different." "I moved some furniture around." Emma decided the couch needed to face the window for better natural light. "She's right. It's better this way." Maya set down her bag, shrugged out of her blazer. "Something smells good?" "Just soup and sandwiches, nothing fancy." Fancy is overrated. They ate at the small dining table, conversation starting carefully and then flowing more naturally. Maya talked about Portland, about her new job, about how Rachel was impossible to live with, but also the best roommate she could ask for. Caleb talked about the nonprofit's new initiative, about Emma's school projects, about Kate's latest attempt to set him up with one of her work friends. "Did you go?" Maya asked, and something in her voice was too casual. "On the date?" "No, I'm not interested in being set up." "Why not?" Caleb met her eyes. "Because I'm not ready, and because—" He trailed off, uncertain. Because the person I want to spend time with lives in Portland and is very busy building a new life. The words hung between them. Maya set down her sandwich and Caleb could see her processing, deciding how to respond. "What if that person missed Seattle more than she expected?" Maya said quietly. "What if she loved her job but felt like something was missing? Then maybe she should figure out what that missing piece is." "I think I know what it is." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "I think I've known for a while." Caleb's heart was pounding now. "Maya, I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me say it all before you respond, okay?" He nodded, not trusting his voice. Maya took a breath. "When I left Seattle, I told myself I needed space to heal, to figure out who I was without Ryan, without someone else defining me. And that was true. I did need that. These past 3 months have been good for me. I've been in therapy, I've built a support system, I've started feeling like myself again." She twisted her hands together, not quite meeting his eyes. "But what I didn't expect was how much I'd miss you. Not just as a friend, Caleb. I missed you in a way that felt different. Every time something good happened, you were the first person I wanted to tell. Every time something was hard, I wanted to call you. And I started wondering if maybe—" She finally looked up at him, and her eyes were full of something that made it hard to breathe. "If maybe what I felt that night when I knocked on your door wasn't just gratitude or relief. If maybe it was something I've been feeling for a while but was too scared to admit. Because you're my best friend, and I didn't want to ruin that. And because I just got out of something terrible, and I don't trust my own judgment." Caleb wanted to speak, but he'd promised to let her finish. "My therapist asked me what I wanted," Maya continued. "Not what I thought I should want, not what was smart or safe, just what I wanted. And the answer was immediate. You. I wanted you." She laughed, slightly unsteady. "But then I panicked, because what if I'm not ready? What if I'm just projecting safety onto you because you were there when I needed someone? What if I'm confusing love with gratitude?" "Are you?" Caleb managed. "Confusing them?" Maya shook her head slowly. "No, I don't think I am. I think I've been in love with you for years and didn't let myself see it. Because we were friends, because the timing was never right, because it felt too big and scary to acknowledge. She reached across the table, placed her hand on his. But I can't not acknowledge it anymore. And I need to know, is this one-sided? Am I reading things that aren't there? Caleb looked down at her hand on his, small and warm and trembling slightly. He thought about the past 3 months, about the hollow feeling in his chest, about lying awake wondering what she was doing, about Emma's simple observation. You love her. No, he said quietly. It's not one-sided. Maya's breath caught. It's not? I've missed you so much, Maya, and not just as a friend. When you left, it felt like someone turned off half the lights. Everything still worked, but it was dimmer. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. But I didn't want to say anything because you needed time to heal. Because I didn't want to be another man making demands when you were trying to find yourself. So what do we do? Maya asked. Because I want to try this. I want to see what this could be. But I'm also terrified. Of what? Of rushing into something before I'm ready. Of ruining our friendship if it doesn't work out. She paused. Of not being enough. Ryan spent 2 years telling me I wasn't enough. What if that's true? Caleb stood up, came around the table, and crouched beside her chair so they were eye level. Listen to me. Ryan was wrong about you. About everything. You are more than enough. You're brilliant and creative and brave and kind. And if you need time, we'll take time. If you need to go slow, we'll go slow. Whatever you need, Maya. Tears slipped down her cheeks. What if I'm not ready for a relationship? What if I need months or even years to fully heal? Then I'll wait, as long as it takes. That's not fair to you. Let me decide what's fair to me. He wiped away her tears with his thumb. I'd rather wait for something real with you than rush into something convenient with someone else. Maya leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. I can't move back to Seattle. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I know. And I can't do long distance halfway. If we try this, I need to know you're all in. I'm all in, Caleb said without hesitation. We'll figure out the logistics. Portland's not that far. We'll visit, we'll call, we'll make it work. What about Emma? Emma already loves you, and she's been asking when you're coming back since the day you left. Maya pulled back slightly to look at him, her eyes searching his face. You really want this? You want me? More than I've wanted anything in a long time. She kissed him then, soft and tentative, her hand coming up to cup his cheek. It was gentle and sweet and tasted like tears and possibility. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. So what now? Maya asked. Maya, now we take it one day at a time. You focus on your conference. I'll pick up Emma from school. Tonight, if you want, you can come for dinner. Meet Emma, officially, as whatever we are. What are we? Caleb thought about it. 2 people who care about each other figuring out how to do this right. How's that sound? Perfect, Maya said. Absolutely perfect. They spent the rest of the afternoon on the couch, talking about logistics and fears and hopes, about how they'd navigate the distance, about when they could see each other, about what they'd tell Emma. At 3 o'clock, Caleb left to pick up his daughter from school. When he returned, Emma shrieked with joy at seeing Maya and launched herself into her arms. They spent the evening cooking dinner together, Emma chattering nonstop while Maya listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at the girls' elaborate stories. After Emma was in bed, Caleb walked Maya to her hotel. They stood outside under the awning, rain falling steadily around them, neither wanting to say goodbye. Thank you, Maya said. For being patient, for being you. Thank you for knocking on my door that night, she smiled. Best decision I ever made. Caleb kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then her lips. Text me when you get to your room. I'm literally walking inside right now. Humor me. She laughed. Okay. See you tomorrow? Tomorrow. He watched her go inside, waited until she disappeared into the elevator. His phone buzzed almost immediately. I'm in the elevator. Miss you already. He smiled and typed back. Miss you too. Sleep well. Walking back to his apartment through the rain, Caleb felt lighter than he had in months. There would be challenges ahead, distance and timing, and old wounds that needed more healing. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. Sometimes love knocked quietly when you least expected it. And sometimes, if you were brave enough, you opened the door and let it in. The conference center buzzed with energy the next morning, designers and nonprofit leaders mingling over coffee and pastries in the main atrium. Caleb stood near the registration table, visitor badge clipped to his shirt, scanning the crowd for Maya. She'd texted him at 7 saying she was running through her presentation one more time, that she was nervous, that she'd see him before her session at 10. He spotted her near the stage, talking animatedly with a woman in a red blazer. Even from across the room, Caleb could see the confidence in Maya's posture, the way she gestured while she spoke, completely at ease in her element. This was the Maya he remembered from college, before Ryan, before the gradual erosion of her self-assurance. She'd found herself again in Portland, and watching her now, Caleb felt a surge of pride mixed with something deeper. She caught his eye and smiled, excusing herself from the conversation. As she walked toward him, weaving through clusters of attendees, Caleb noticed other people noticing her. A man in an expensive suit did a double take. 2 women whispered to each other as she passed. Maya seemed oblivious to the attention, focused only on reaching him. "Hey," she said when she was close enough. "You came." "Of course I came. Wouldn't miss it." "It's probably going to be boring. Lots of technical stuff about collaboration frameworks and design thinking." "I doubt anything you present could be boring." Maya's cheeks flushed slightly. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "I keep thinking about yesterday, about what we said." "Having second thoughts?" "No, the opposite, actually. I keep thinking I should be more scared than I am, but I just feel happy." "Is that weird?" "Not weird," Caleb said. "Not weird at all." A voice crackled over the PA system, announcing that sessions would begin in 15 minutes. Maya straightened her blazer, took a breath. "Wish me luck?" "You don't need it, but good luck anyway." She squeezed his hand quickly before heading backstage. Caleb found a seat in the 3rd row, close enough to see her clearly, but not so close that his presence would be distracting. The auditorium filled around him, professional murmurs and the rustle of programs, the click of laptops opening. When Maya took the stage, something shifted in the room. She commanded attention not through force, but through genuine passion for her subject. Her presentation focused on how thoughtful design could amplify nonprofit messaging, complete with case studies from her work in Portland. She spoke about empathy, about understanding audiences, about creating visual narratives that moved people to action. Caleb watched, mesmerized, not just by the content, but by her delivery. This was Maya fully in her power, doing what she was born to do. When she finished, the applause was enthusiastic. Several people immediately approached her with questions, business cards, collaboration proposals. He hung back, giving her space to network, to shine. But she kept glancing his way, as if checking to make sure he was still there. An hour later, they found themselves walking through Pike Place Market, Maya having changed out of her professional attire into jeans and a sweater. The market was crowded with Saturday tourists, fish throwers calling out, flower vendors arranging bouquets in riotous colors. "You were incredible up there," Caleb said as they paused at a stall selling fresh strawberries. "You're biased." "Maybe. But I'm also right. 3 people asked for your business card during the Q&A session alone." Maya selected a container of strawberries, paid the vendor. "One of them was from a nonprofit in Seattle, actually. They're looking for a design consultant for a rebrand. Asked if I'd be interested in the contract." "Are you?" She popped a strawberry in her mouth, considering. "I don't know. It would mean coming back to Seattle regularly, maybe once or twice a month for a few months." Caleb's heart kicked up. "And that's bad?" "Not bad, just complicated." She offered him a strawberry. "I have a job in Portland, a life there. But I'd be lying if I said the idea of being here more often didn't appeal to me." They walked in silence for a moment, navigating around a tour group clustered near the gum wall. The city felt alive around them, pulse and energy and possibility. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "And I need you to be completely honest. Always. What do you want this to look like? Us, I mean. because I keep trying to figure out the logistics, and it feels impossible. I'm in Portland, you're here, Emma's in school. I can't ask you to uproot your whole life, but I also can't pretend distance doesn't matter. Caleb stopped walking, gently guided her to the side of the walkway out of the flow of foot traffic. What I want is to figure it out together. Take it slow, see where it goes. You come here when you can, I'll come there when I can. We video chat, we text, we make it work until we figure out something more permanent. And if it doesn't work, if the distance is too hard, then at least we tried. At least we were honest about what we felt instead of spending years wondering what if. Maya looked up at him, and in the gray Seattle light, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I really want this to work, Caleb. So do I. She stood on her toes and kissed him, right there in the middle of Pike Place Market, with tourists streaming around them and seagulls crying overhead. It was brief but genuine, and when she pulled back, she was smiling. Okay, she said, let's try. The rest of Maya's conference passed in a blur of sessions and networking events. Caleb attended what he could, picking up Emma from school in the afternoons and bringing her to meet Maya for early dinners. They fell into an easy rhythm, the three of them, like trying on a life that might be theirs if they could navigate the geography. On Maya's last night in Seattle, after Emma was asleep, she and Caleb sat on his apartment balcony wrapped in blankets against the January cold. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. I don't want to leave tomorrow, Maya said quietly. Then don't. Stay another day. I have work Monday, a client presentation at 9. Right, of course. Caleb was quiet for a moment. When can I see you again? I was thinking about that. If I take that Seattle contract, I could come up for a long weekend next month. Fly in Thursday night, work Friday, spend the weekend with you guys. Emma would love that. What about you? He pulled her closer against his side. I'd love it too. Maya rested her head on his shoulder. This is going to be hard, isn't it? The back and forth, the missing each other. Probably, but you're worth it. You always know the right thing to say. Not always. Ask my ex-wife. Maya laughed softly. Fair point. She was quiet for a moment, then, can I tell you something that might sound crazy? Always. I'm happier right now, sitting on this freezing balcony with you, than I've been in years, even with all the uncertainty and the distance and the complications. Just being here with you feels right in a way nothing has in a long time. Caleb felt his throat tighten. Not crazy. I feel it too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe below them. A plane passed overhead, red lights blinking against the dark sky. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing music, the bass line carrying on the cold air. I should probably go, Maya said eventually, though she made no move to get up. Early flight tomorrow. 5 more minutes. Okay. 5 more minutes. They sat there for 20, neither wanting to break the spell, neither willing to acknowledge that morning would come too soon. When Maya finally left, Caleb stood in his doorway watching her walk down the hall to the elevator. She turned back once, blew him a kiss, and then she was gone. The apartment felt emptier than it had in months. February arrived with unusual snow, transforming Seattle into something magical and impractical. Schools closed, buses ran late, and Emma spent hours building a snowman in the apartment complex's small courtyard, while Caleb worked from home, occasionally glancing out the window to make sure she was still bundled up properly. Maya called every night. Sometimes they talked for hours, sometimes just 15 minutes before one of them fell asleep. They texted throughout the day, photos of coffee cups, screenshots of funny articles, random observations that felt urgent at the moment and silly in retrospect. The distance was harder than Caleb had anticipated, not in any dramatic way, but in the small accumulation of moments he wanted to share with her in person. Emma's school play where she forgot her lines and improvised a song about pickles instead. The sunset he saw driving home that painted the sky in impossible colors. The night he couldn't sleep and wanted nothing more than to knock on her door and talk until dawn. But they made it work. Maya took the Seattle contract and flew up the first weekend of February as planned. She stayed in a hotel. Let's take things slow, she'd said, and Caleb agreed even though slow was starting to feel unnecessarily cautious. and spent Friday working with the nonprofit client downtown. Friday night, Caleb arranged for Kate to watch Emma, and he took Maya to a small Italian restaurant in Capitol Hill that had been there since before either of them was born. They sat in a corner booth, sharing plates of pasta and a bottle of wine, talking about everything and nothing. "Tell me about your week," Maya said, twirling linguine around her fork. "Meetings mostly, budget reviews, the joys of nonprofit operations." Caleb sipped his wine. "Emma's teacher called. Apparently she's been telling everyone at school that she's going to be a marine biologist and move to the ocean." "That's adorable." "It is until you remember we live in Seattle, which is on the ocean, and she specifically wants to move to where the whales live. I think she means Alaska." Maya laughed. "She has ambition. I like it." "She asked about you yesterday. Wanted to know when you're moving back." The laughter faded from Maya's face. "What did you tell her?" "That you have an important job in Portland. That you visit when you can." Caleb set down his glass. "She asked if you're my girlfriend." "Oh, what did you say to that?" "I said it's complicated," which earned me a very impressive eye roll for a 6-year-old. Apparently, it's complicated is not an acceptable relationship status in her world. Maya was quiet for a moment, studying her plate. "What would you have said if it wasn't complicated?" "What do you want me to say?" She met his eyes. "The truth." Caleb reached across the table, took her hand. "The truth is, I care about you deeply. The truth is, I think about you constantly. The truth is, when Emma asks if you're my girlfriend, I want to say yes, but I also want to respect whatever pace you need to set. What if I don't want to go slow anymore?" His heart stuttered. "Then we don't go slow." "I've been thinking," Maya said, her thumb tracing circles on his palm, "about what my therapist said, about not letting fear make my decisions. I've been so worried about rushing into something, about repeating old patterns, that maybe I've been holding back from something good." "Maya, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "You're not Ryan. You've never been anything like Ryan. And what we have isn't me looking for someone to save me. It's two people who have known each other for 20 years choosing to see if there's more there. And I think there is. I know there is." Caleb's grip on her hand tightened. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying yes, I'm your girlfriend. If you want me to be. I'm saying let's stop pretending this is casual or tentative. I'm in, Caleb, completely." He was around the table before he could think, pulling her up into his arms, kissing her properly for the first time without the weight of uncertainty hanging over them. The other diners pretended not to stare. The waiter discreetly gave them space. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Maya was grinning. "So I'm guessing that's a yes?" "That's a definite yes." They stayed at the restaurant until closing, talking about what this meant, about how to tell Emma, about the practicalities of a long-distance relationship. They agreed to visit each other as often as work and parenting allowed. They agreed to be honest about when things were hard. They agreed to give this everything they had. Walking back to her hotel through the snowy streets, fingers laced together, Caleb felt something he hadn't felt since before his divorce: genuine hope for the future. The weekend passed too quickly. Saturday, they took Emma to the aquarium, watching her press her face against the glass of the shark tank while Maya took what felt like 100 photos. Sunday, they made breakfast together, Emma insisting on helping flip pancakes and getting batter everywhere. When it was time to take Maya to the airport Sunday afternoon, Emma cried. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that somehow felt worse. "When will you come back?" she asked, hugging Maya tight. "Soon, sweetie. Maybe next month." "That's forever." "I know it feels like that, but time goes faster than you think, and we can video chat whenever you want." Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Promise you'll come back?" "I promise." At the airport, Caleb walked Maya as far as security would allow. They stood off to the side, out of the main flow of travelers, neither wanting to say goodbye. "Thank you for this weekend," Maya said. "For all of it." "Thank you for saying yes." She smiled. "Easiest decision I've ever made." Then her expression grew more serious. "This is going to be hard, Caleb. The distance, the missing each other. Are you sure you're ready for that?" "I've never been more sure of anything." She kissed him one more time, long and deep, memorizing the moment. Then she pulled back, grabbed her carry-on, and headed toward security. She turned back twice, once to wave, once to blow a kiss. Caleb stood there until she disappeared from view, then drove home through streets that felt grayer than they had that morning. March tested them. Maya's work schedule intensified with multiple client deadlines. Caleb dealt with a funding crisis at the nonprofit that required long hours and emergency board meetings. Their nightly calls became shorter, sometimes reduced to hurried texts. A planned visit got canceled when Emma came down with the flu. They had their first real fight on a Tuesday night at the end of the month. Caleb had been trying to coordinate a weekend visit, but Maya kept saying she needed to check her calendar, that work was crazy, that she'd let him know. "It feels like you're avoiding coming here," Caleb said, frustration bleeding through despite his attempt to stay calm. "I'm not avoiding anything. I'm dealing with reality. I can't just drop everything and fly to Seattle whenever we feel like seeing each other." "I'm not asking you to drop everything. I'm asking you to prioritize us." "That's not fair. I am prioritizing us. But I also have a job that matters to me, responsibilities I can't ignore." "So do I, Maya. But I make time." The silence that followed was sharp, brittle. "Are you saying I'm not making time?" Her voice was quiet, dangerous. Caleb closed his eyes, recognized he'd stepped over a line. "No, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry. I'm just frustrated." "So am I. You think this is easy for me? Being away from you, from Emma? I hate it, Caleb, but I can't just abandon the life I've built in Portland." "I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" It was the question underneath everything, the one they'd been dancing around for weeks. What was he asking? For her to move back? For him to move there? For some magic solution that made geography irrelevant? "I don't know," he admitted. "I just miss you. And I'm taking it out on you, which isn't fair. I'm sorry." Maya's sigh carried clearly through the phone. "I miss you too, and I'm sorry I've been distant. Work has been insane, and I've been stressed, and instead of talking to you about it, I've been pulling away. So let's talk about it, right now, no more pulling away." They stayed on the phone for 2 hours, talking through the hard stuff, the loneliness, the frustration, the fear that maybe they'd been wrong about this working. By the end, they hadn't solved anything concrete, but they felt closer for having been honest. "We'll figure it out," Maya said as they were finally saying goodnight. "I don't know how yet, but we will." "Yeah," Caleb agreed. "We will." April brought rain and cherry blossoms and Maya's birthday. Caleb flew to Portland for the weekend, his first time visiting her there. Rachel picked him up from the airport, gave him a quick hug, and immediately launched into stories about Maya that made him laugh. "She talks about you constantly," Rachel said as they drove through the city. "It's actually kind of disgusting how happy you make her." "The feeling's mutual." "Good. Because if you hurt her, I know 12 different ways to dispose of a body." Noted. Maya's apartment was in a renovated warehouse in the Pearl District, all exposed brick and high ceilings. She decorated it with her typical artistic flair, plants in every corner, original artwork on the walls, a reading nook by the window with cushions and jewel tones. "It's beautiful," Caleb said, taking it in. "It's home," Maya replied, then caught herself. Or one of them, anyway. They spent the weekend exploring Portland, Powell's books, food carts, a hike to Multnomah Falls. Rachel joined them for Maya's birthday dinner at a Thai restaurant that served dishes so spicy Caleb's eyes watered. Maya laughed at his attempts to play it cool, ordered him another beer, kissed his cheek. That night, back at her apartment with Rachel diplomatically staying at a friend's place, Maya and Caleb sat on her couch with glasses of wine, city lights visible through the tall windows. "This was a good birthday," Maya said, curled against his side. "Maybe the best one I've had. Even better than your 16th when we convinced your mom to take us to that concert and we had terrible seats but sang every word. Even better than that." Caleb kissed the top of her head. "I got you something. It's not much, but you didn't have to get me anything. You being here is enough." "I wanted to." He reached into his bag, pulled out a small wrapped package. "Open it." Maya sat up, carefully unwrapping the paper to reveal a leather-bound journal, the kind with unlined pages perfect for sketching or writing. On the front cover, embossed in gold, were 2 words, "Our Story." It's for us, Caleb explained. I thought we could both write in it. You when you're in Portland, me when I'm in Seattle. Share it back and forth, letters, drawings, whatever. A way to feel connected even when we're apart. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Caleb, this is perfect. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him, deep and slow. I love it. I love... She stopped, caught herself. Caleb's heart hammered. You love what? Maya looked at him for a long moment, and something shifted in her expression. A decision made. I love you. I wasn't going to say it yet. Wasn't sure if it was too soon, but I do. I love you, Caleb. The words hung in the air between them, huge and fragile and true. I love you too, he said, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I think I have for a long time. Me too, Maya whispered. Me too. They made love for the first time that night, slow and careful and honest. Afterward, lying tangled together in her bed, Maya wrote the first entry in their journal while Caleb watched, his hand tracing lazy patterns on her back. She showed him what she'd written. Today, Caleb told me he loved me. Today, I told him the same. Today, I stopped being afraid. He took the journal, wrote underneath, Today I realized I'd follow this woman anywhere. When Caleb flew back to Seattle Sunday evening, the journal came with him. Over the next weeks, it traveled back and forth between them, filling with words and sketches and the small intimacies of their lives. Maya drew pictures of her morning coffee routine. Caleb wrote about Emma's latest school project. They shared fears and hopes and everyday observations that felt important simply because they wanted to share them. By May, they'd settled into a rhythm. Maya came to Seattle every other weekend. Caleb went to Portland on the alternate weekends when Emma was with Kate. They talked every night without fail. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard moments, still times when the distance felt insurmountable, but they were making it work. One Friday night in late May, Caleb was cooking dinner while Emma did homework at the kitchen table. His phone rang, Maya's name lighting up the screen. Hey, you're early, he said, tucking the phone against his shoulder while he stirred pasta sauce. Everything okay? Yeah, actually, really okay. I have news. Something in her voice made Caleb set down the spoon, give her his full attention. What kind of news? Remember that nonprofit here that I did the rebrand for, the one in Seattle? Yeah. They love the work, and they've been talking to their board, and apparently they have budget for a full-time creative director position. They want to know if I'd be interested. Caleb's heart stopped. In Seattle. In Seattle. I'd have to leave my current job, which is scary, but it's a good opportunity, Caleb, really good. And it would mean you'd move back. I'd move back. She paused. If I take it, I haven't decided yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Caleb was aware of Emma looking up from her homework, sensing something important was happening. He moved to the living room for privacy. What do you want to do? He asked quietly. Honestly, I want to come home. Portland's been good for me, but Seattle's where I belong, where you are, where Emma is. I miss it, Caleb. I miss you so much that sometimes it physically hurts. But I'm scared. What if I'm making this decision for the wrong reasons? What if I'm choosing you over my career? You're not choosing me over your career, you're choosing a different career opportunity that happens to be in the same city as me. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Caleb thought carefully about his next words. If I wasn't in the picture, would you still consider the job? Maya was quiet for a long moment. Yes, it's a better position than what I have now. More creative control, better pay, work that aligns more with my values, but I'd be lying if I said you weren't part of the equation. Then take the job. If you want it, move back. Let's stop pretending we can do long distance forever when we both want the same thing. Which is? To be together. Really together. Not just weekends and phone calls, but actual shared life. He could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could almost see her thinking. I'm terrified, she admitted. Of what? Of everything. Of moving back and having Ryan be nearby again. Of putting all my eggs in one basket with you and having it blow up. of disappointing my clients in Portland, of making the wrong choice. Maya, Caleb kept his voice gentle but firm. You're allowed to choose happiness. You're allowed to move towards something good instead of just running away from something bad. When did you get so wise? Around the same time I fell in love with you and had to figure out how to be brave enough to deserve you. She laughed, wet and emotional. You really think I should take it? I think you should do whatever feels right for you. But if you're asking my opinion, yes. Come home, please. Okay, Maya said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Okay. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna tell them yes. Yeah? Yeah. I'm coming home, Caleb. I'm finally coming home. Emma screamed when she heard the news, literally screamed with joy so loud that Caleb's neighbor knocked on the wall. She jumped up and down in the middle of the living room, her homework forgotten, demanding to know when Aunt Maya would arrive. Could they help her move? Could she live with them? Could they get a puppy to celebrate? Slow down, Bug, Caleb laughed, catching her mid-jump. She has to give notice at her job first, find an apartment, pack her things. It'll be a few weeks at least. But she's really coming back? For real this time? For real this time. Emma hugged him so tight he could barely breathe. This is the best day ever. Can I call her, please? Caleb handed over his phone, watched his daughter's face light up as she talked to Maya, making elaborate plans for all the things they'd do together. Art projects and museum visits and something about teaching Maya to skateboard that made Caleb quietly concerned. After Emma finally went to bed that night, still chattering about Maya's return, Caleb sat on his balcony with a beer and let himself feel the full weight of what was happening. Maya was moving back. After 6 months of distance and uncertainty, of stolen weekends and nightly phone calls, she was coming home. It felt too good to be true. And that scared him more than he wanted to admit. The next 3 weeks passed in a flurry of logistics. Maya gave notice at her Portland agency, and while her boss was disappointed, she understood. She put in her formal acceptance for the Seattle position, scheduled to start in early July. She listed her Portland apartment, packed her life into boxes for the second time in a year, and coordinated with Rachel about the move. Caleb wanted to fly down and help, but Maya insisted she had it handled. You've got Emma and work, she said during one of their nightly calls. Besides, Rachel's recruited half her CrossFit gym to help load the truck. We'll be fine. You're sure? I'm sure. Save your energy for when I get there. I'll need help unpacking. Have you found a place yet? Maya hesitated. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. I've been looking at apartments, but everything I can afford is either tiny or in sketchy neighborhoods or both. And I was thinking, what if I didn't get my own place right away? Caleb's heart rate picked up. What are you suggesting? I could get a short-term rental, month to month, something temporary while I figure things out. She paused. Unless you think that's a bad idea. Unless you think I should have my own space. Is that what you want? Your own space? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks I should, that it's too fast to even consider anything else. But another part of me is tired of being apart. Tired of splitting my life between two places. Caleb chose his words carefully. What about Emma? This affects her too. I know. That's why I wanted to talk to you first. See what you think. He looked out at the Seattle skyline, thought about the past 6 months, about everything they'd been through to get to this point. I think we take it slow. You get a short-term place, we see how it goes. But Maya, yeah? I want you to know that when you're ready, whenever that is, there's space for you here, with us. Not because you need rescuing or because it's convenient, because we're a family, the three of us. We have been since that night you knocked on my door. He heard her breath catch. Caleb, you don't have to say anything. Just know it's there. The option. Whenever you're ready. Thank you, she whispered, for being patient, for understanding. Always. Maya found a furnished studio in Fremont, month-to-month lease, available immediately. It was small but bright, with big windows and hardwood floors. She sent Caleb pictures, and he pretended not to notice how temporary it looked, how much it resembled a way station rather than a home. Moving day arrived on the last Saturday in June. Caleb borrowed Kate's SUV, picked up Emma from her sleepover at Sophie's, and drove to meet Maya at her new place. The moving truck was already there, Rachel directing a small army of friends with the efficiency of a general commanding troops. "Caleb!" Rachel called when she spotted him. "Perfect timing. We need someone tall for the bookshelf." He spent the next 4 hours hauling furniture, assembling flat-pack pieces that came with incomprehensible instructions, and trying to keep Emma from helping in ways that created more work. Maya orchestrated everything, checking items off a list, directing traffic, occasionally catching Caleb's eye across the room and smiling. By late afternoon, the apartment was taking shape. Rachel's friends dispersed with promises to meet up later for celebratory drinks. Emma had claimed a corner of the living room where she was arranging Maya's art supplies by color, and Caleb found himself on the small balcony with Maya, both of them exhausted, looking out at the neighborhood. "You really did it," he said. "You're back." "I'm back." Maya leaned against the railing. "It feels surreal, like I might wake up and find out I'm still in Portland." "Any regrets?" She turned to face him. "Not even one." He kissed her then, soft and slow, tasting like the future. When they pulled apart, Emma was watching them through the window with undisguised delight. "She's going to be impossible," Maya laughed. "She already is, but in the best way." That night, after they'd ordered pizza and Emma had fallen asleep on Maya's new couch, Caleb carried his daughter to the car. Maya walked them down, stood in the parking lot as he buckled Emma in. "Thank you for today," she said. "For everything. You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do." She glanced up at her lit windows. "It's strange being back here, being this close to where I lived with Ryan. I keep expecting to run into him. Has he tried to contact you?" "No, I think he's dating someone seriously now. Rachel heard through mutual friends." Maya wrapped her arms around herself despite the warm evening. "I'm glad. It makes it easier knowing he's moved on." "And you? Have you moved on?" She met his eyes. "Completely. What I had with Ryan wasn't love. I know that now. It was dependence and fear and trying to fix something that was broken from the start." She stepped closer. "What I have with you is different. It's choosing each other every day. It's partnership. It's real." Caleb pulled her into his arms, held her close. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we can start actually settling you in." "Caleb, will you stay? Just for a little while longer?" He looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in the car seat. "I need to get her home, get her an actual bed." "Right, of course. I wasn't thinking but tomorrow night, if you want, you could come to us. Stay over. We could make it a regular thing. You having your space here, but also having space with us." Maya's face softened. "I'd like that. A lot." The next 6 weeks fell into a new rhythm. Maya started her job, dove into the creative director role with enthusiasm that reminded Caleb of how she'd been in college, passionate, driven, fully alive. She came to Caleb's apartment most evenings after work, had dinner with them, helped Emma with homework, stayed over in Caleb's bed more often than not. Her studio apartment sat mostly empty, a placeholder she visited to water her plants and collect mail. By mid-August, Caleb noticed she'd stopped buying groceries for it, was keeping most of her clothes at his place, had moved her favorite coffee mug to his kitchen cabinet. They didn't talk about it directly. It felt too fragile, too loaded with implications neither was quite ready to voice. But Emma had no such reservations. "Why doesn't Aunt Maya just live here all the time?" she asked one morning at breakfast while Maya was in the shower. "She's here every day anyway." "It's complicated, Bug." Emma gave him that look that suggested she thought adults made things unnecessarily difficult. "Doesn't seem complicated to me. She should just move in. Then we could be a real family." "We are a real family." "You know what I mean." Yeah, Caleb thought. He did. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Caleb and Maya sat on the couch with glasses of wine, her feet in his lap while he absently massaged them. "Emma thinks you should move in," he said, keeping his tone casual. Maya's feet tensed under his hands. "Oh, what did you tell her?" "That it's complicated." "Is it?" Caleb set down his wine glass, gave her his full attention. "You tell me. Is it complicated?" Maya was quiet for a long moment, staring at her own glass. "I'm scared," she finally said, "of moving too fast, of repeating old patterns, of losing myself again." "You're not going to lose yourself, Maya. You know that's different now." "Do I?" Because sometimes I wake up here, in your bed, in your apartment, and I panic. Think about how I gave up so much of myself with Ryan, how I let him control where I lived, who I saw, what I did, and I wonder if I'm doing it again. Caleb's chest tightened. Am I making you feel that way? Like you have to give up anything? No, that's what scares me. You're not Ryan. This isn't that. But the fear is still there, lurking. What if I move in and slowly start depending on you too much? What if I lose the independence I've worked so hard to rebuild? He thought about how to respond, how to honor her fear while also speaking his truth. What if instead of thinking about it as giving something up, you think about it as choosing something, choosing to build a life with me and Emma? Not because you need us, but because you want us. I do want you, both of you, so much. Then let yourself have this. Keep your job, your friends, your own life, but come home to us at the end of the day, not because you have to, but because you want to. Maya's eyes filled with tears. What if it doesn't work? Then we figure it out, together. But Maya, you're already here most of the time anyway. We're already doing this. Making it official just means you stop paying rent on an apartment you never use. She laughed through her tears. That's very practical. I'm a practical guy. Yes, you are. She set down her glass, shifted to sit in his lap, facing him. Ask me properly. Not just as a practical solution to duplicate housing costs. Ask me like you mean it. Caleb's heart hammered. Maya Collins, will you move in with us? Will you make this your home? Officially, completely? Will you let us be your family? Yes, she said, kissing him between words. Yes, yes, yes. They told Emma the next morning over pancakes. Her shriek of joy was loud enough that Caleb seriously considered apologizing to the neighbors again. She insisted on helping Maya pack up the studio apartment that very day, made elaborate plans for how to rearrange the furniture to accommodate Maya's things. Can we paint my room? Emma asked. So Aunt Maya can help me pick colors like real roommates do? Sure, Bug, Caleb agreed, catching Maya's amused expression. And can we get a bigger table so we all fit better? We'll look at tables. And can Maya teach me how to draw better, like professional artist lessons? If Maya wants to, yes. Emma turned to Maya with pleading eyes. Will you? Absolutely, Maya said, ruffling her hair. We'll start this weekend. Over the next 2 weeks, they merged their lives in concrete ways. Maya's furniture joined Caleb's in a surprisingly harmonious blend of styles. Her artwork filled the walls. Her plants crowded the windows. Her coffee supplies overtook an entire kitchen shelf. The day she officially gave up her studio lease, Maya stood in Caleb's apartment, their apartment now, and looked around with wonder. I can't believe this is real, she said. It's real. I have a family again, a real one, where people actually want me around. Caleb wrapped his arms around her from behind. We more than want you around. We need you here, both of us. She turned in his arms, and there were tears on her cheeks, but she was smiling. I love you so much. I love you too. September brought routines and rhythms. Maya walking Emma to school some mornings while Caleb headed to work early. Family dinners at the table they'd bought together. Movie nights on the couch with Emma between them. The small intimacies of shared life. Knowing how someone took their coffee, whose turn it was to do dishes. The comfortable silence of reading in the same room. They had their challenges. Maya sometimes retreated when stressed, needed reminding that it was okay to ask for help. Caleb sometimes tried to fix things that just needed to be listened to. They learned to navigate Emma's occasional jealousy, her adjustment to sharing her father's attention in new ways. But they worked through it, together. In October, on a drizzly Saturday afternoon, Maya was helping Emma with an art project at the kitchen table when there was a knock at the door. Caleb answered it to find a delivery man with a large flat package. Delivery for Maya Collins? Yeah, she's here. Maya? Maya came to the door, signed for the package, and Caleb helped her carry it inside. What is it? I forgot I ordered this. It's for Emma's room. She carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a custom canvas print, a beautiful watercolor of the ocean with whales breaching the surface, rendered in soft blues and greens. Emma gasped. That's so pretty. Is it really for me? It is. I had it made special, because every marine biologist needs ocean inspiration in her room. Emma hugged Maya so tight she nearly knocked them both over. You're the best Aunt Maya ever. I'm the only Aunt Maya you have. Still the best. They hung it above Emma's bed that afternoon, Emma directing the placement with the seriousness of a museum curator. After she'd run off to call Sophie and tell her about it, Maya stood in the doorway of Emma's room with Caleb, both of them looking at the finished result. Thank you, Caleb said quietly, for loving her like you do. It's not hard. She's an amazing kid. She is. But still, thank you. Maya leaned against him. Do you ever think about having more kids someday? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it since Sarah left. Why? Just wondering if that's something you'd want. Eventually, not now, she added quickly. But maybe someday. Caleb turned to face her fully. Is that something you want? Maybe. If we're still doing this in a few years, if we're still happy, if it feels right. She ducked her head, suddenly shy. Is that crazy? We've only been living together for 2 months. It's not crazy. It's planning for a future, our future. He tilted her chin up to meet his eyes. And yeah, I'd want that someday, if that's where we end up. She smiled, relieved. Okay, good. I just wanted to know if we were on the same page. We are. We're writing the same story, remember? Our story. Maya pulled out their journal from her bag. They still used it, still passed it back and forth, filling it with the small moments of their life. She wrote quickly, then showed him. Today, Caleb and I talked about someday. Today I stopped being afraid of the future. He took the journal, wrote underneath. Today I realized I'd already found everything I was looking for. November arrived with early darkness and the smell of wood smoke. Thanksgiving dinner was at their apartment this year, Kate and her boyfriend joining them along with Maya's cousin Rachel, who'd driven up from Portland for the weekend. After the meal, while the adults lingered over coffee and pie, Emma fell asleep on the couch, worn out from excitement. Caleb carried her to bed, tucked her in, stood in her doorway for a moment watching her sleep. Maya appeared beside him, slipped her hand into his. You're a good dad, she whispered. I'm trying. You're succeeding. They stood there together, watching the gentle rise and fall of Emma's breathing, the nightlight casting soft shadows across her walls. I'm grateful for this, Maya said quietly. For all of it. A year ago I was terrified and alone and didn't know how I'd survive. Now I have this. You, Emma, a home that actually feels safe. It's more than I ever thought I'd have. You deserve it, all of it and more. So do you. He kissed her temple. Come on, let's get back before Kate eats all the pie. Christmas brought the first real test. Emma's mother, Sarah, called on December 15th, asking to see her daughter. She was in Seattle for work, would be here through New Year's, wanted to take Emma for a few days. Caleb's first instinct was to refuse. Sarah had walked away, had barely called in 2 years, had sent birthday cards with generic messages and checks that felt more like guilt than love. But Emma had the right to know her mother, to make her own choices about that relationship. He talked to Maya about it that night after Emma was asleep. What do you think I should do? He asked. I think you should let Emma decide. She's old enough to have a say. What if Sarah disappoints her again? Maya took his hand. Then you'll be there to help her through it. That's what parents do. So Caleb sat down with Emma the next morning, explained that her mother wanted to visit. Do you want to see her? He asked gently. Emma was quiet for a long time, pushing her cereal around her bowl. Will Maya be there too? If you want her to be. I want her to be. And you. Okay, then we'll all meet together, here, in our home. Does that sound okay? Emma nodded slowly. Yeah, that sounds okay. Sarah arrived on December 20th, looking polished and professional in designer clothes that probably cost more than Caleb made in a month. She smiled brightly when Emma opened the door, crouched down for a hug that Emma gave hesitantly. Hi, baby, you've gotten so big. Hi, Mom. They gathered in the living room, an awkward constellation of current family and former wife. Sarah's eyes kept drifting to Maya with poorly concealed curiosity. "So you're Maya," Sarah said with artificial brightness. "Emma's told me about you on the phone." "Nice to meet you," Maya said, her voice pleasant but guarded. The visit was stilted, full of forced conversation and long silences. Sarah asked Emma about school, about her friends, about her interests, but the questions felt perfunctory, disconnected. She pulled out expensive presents, an iPad, designer clothes, a dollhouse that was far too young for a 7-year-old. Emma thanked her politely, but without real enthusiasm. After an hour, Sarah checked her watch. "I should get going. I have a dinner meeting, but Emma, sweetheart, I was thinking maybe you could come stay with me at my hotel tomorrow. We could go shopping, see a movie, have a girls' day." Emma looked at Caleb, then at Maya, then back at her mother. "Can Daddy and Maya come too?" Sarah's smile tightened. "I was thinking just us, mother-daughter time. I don't want to go without them." "Emma, I said I don't want to." Emma's voice was firm in a way Caleb had rarely heard. "You left us, Mom. You chose work over me. Daddy didn't. Maya didn't. They're my family now. If you want to see me, they come too." The room fell silent. Sarah looked like she'd been slapped. Caleb felt simultaneously proud of his daughter and sad for her that she had to assert these boundaries at 7 years old. "I see," Sarah said finally, standing up. "Well, I'll be in town through the holidays if you change your mind." After she left, Emma climbed into Maya's lap and cried. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that somehow felt worse. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. "Is it bad that I didn't want to go with her?" "No, sweetheart," Maya said, holding her close. "You were honest about what you needed. That's not bad, that's brave. But she's my mom." "Yes, she is, and maybe someday you'll want a relationship with her. But it's okay to not be ready for that now." "It's okay to need more time." Emma sniffled. "I'm glad you live here now. I'm glad you're part of our family." "I'm glad too," Maya said, meeting Caleb's eyes over Emma's head. "So glad." Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. Emma woke them at dawn, dragging them both to the living room where the tree glowed with lights and presents spilled out in cheerful chaos. They opened gifts slowly, savoring the moments. Emma squealed over art supplies and books and a telescope for stargazing. Caleb gave Maya a necklace with 3 small charms, a C, an E, and an M, interlinked. She cried when she opened it. "We're all connected," he explained, "the 3 of us." "It's perfect," she whispered. Maya's gift to Caleb was the journal they'd been filling together, now completely full, along with a new blank one. On the first page of the new journal, she'd written, "Year 2 of our story. Here's to many more." After breakfast, while Emma played with her new toys, Caleb and Maya stood on the balcony with their coffee, watching the city wake up. "This is everything I never knew I wanted," Maya said. "A year ago, I was so broken I couldn't see a future. Now I can't imagine any future that doesn't include this. You, Emma, this life we're building. No regrets?" "Not a single one." She turned to face him. "I know we've only been living together a few months. I know by conventional standards we're moving fast. But Caleb, I'm more sure of this than I've been of anything in my life." "Sure of what?" "Of us. Of choosing this every day. Of wanting forever with you." Caleb set down his coffee, took both her hands. "Maya, I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know that I'm in this completely, for as long as you'll have me." "Forever sounds good to me too," he said, pulling her close. "Forever sounds perfect." They stood there wrapped in each other as the morning brightened around them, the city spreading out below in all its complicated beauty. Inside, Emma started singing along to the Christmas music, slightly off-key but full of joy. This was it, Caleb thought. This was the life he'd been waiting for without knowing he was waiting. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and honest and built on the solid foundation of choosing each other every single day. A year ago, Maya had knocked on his door after bedtime, terrified and alone. And in opening that door, Caleb had opened his life to possibility, to healing and growth and love that arrived quietly instead of with fireworks. Sometimes the best things didn't announce themselves. Sometimes they just knocked softly and waited to see if you'd answer. And when you did, when you were brave enough to let them in, they transformed everything. Maya pulled back to look up at him, eyes bright with love and contentment. What are you thinking about? Just that I'm grateful. For that night you knocked. For your courage in asking for help. For every choice that led us here. Me too. She stood on her toes to kiss him. Me too. Inside, Emma called out, Daddy, Maya, come see what I built. They went inside together, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Because they'd learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It was about showing up, day after day, choosing kindness and patience and partnership. It was about opening your door when someone knocked, even when, especially when, you didn't know what would happen next. It was about believing that broken people could heal, that friendship could become family, that sometimes the person you'd known for 20 years could also be the person you'd spend the rest of your life with. And as Caleb watched Maya kneel down beside Emma to admire her Lego creation, as he saw his daughter's face light up with pure happiness, he knew with absolute certainty that they'd made it. They'd survived the fear and distance and doubt. They'd built something real and lasting and true. They'd found their way home. And it had started with 3 quiet knocks after bedtime, with a scared woman in a hallway, with a friend who chose to open his door. Sometimes, Caleb thought, the smallest moments changed everything. Sometimes love knocked quietly. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you were brave enough to answer.